From the dawn of time we came, moving silently down through the centuries, living many secret lives, struggling to reach the time of the gathering, when the few who remain will battle for the last. No one has ever known we were among you, until now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you how many times that was heard in my household growing up.
Okay.
Fair few, I'd say, John.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Here Be Dragons. I am, of course, your host, as always, Stephen Stark. With me are the trusty, rusty co-host crew, Nessie, John, and everyone. Please give a warm welcome for a first-time guest on the stream, Christine from the Nevernever Podcast.
Hello.
Say hi.
Hello.
And Christine, why don't you just tell people who you are, what you do, and then we'll jump into talking about the movie.
Yeah, so I have a podcast about the Dresden Files, which it's kind of a spoilery reread kind of podcast. So I tend to direct people who've never read the series before to the podcast of a friend of mine or a couple of friends of mine who do theirs. They're called the Paranet Podcast. They're really cool. But yeah, I do that, and I lurk in the fandom of Song of Ice and Fire, and I really like movies, so that's why I'm here.
Yeah, we had a brief conversation about movies, and it was just like, hey, you want to come talk about the next one? And she said yes, so we suckered her in.
Yay! I like getting suckered. It's fun.
Nice.
So yeah. my first contention, I'm just going to go off the bat right here. Thank you, Betsy, Mom of Starks.
That's my IRL mother, by the way.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. So yeah, my only bone to pick with you, John, is that it's moving silently.
Yes.
That has to be noted.
I couldn't even go there. I wasn't going to attempt the Sean Connery accent, because only Sean Connery can do it justice. So.
Indeed. Only this movie would cast a Scottish person in the role of an Egyptian person who later became a Spaniard. Even though it's about Scottish people, they could have made it about Scottish. They could have made him a Scottish character, but no.
And it's perfect. I mean, the introduction, of Ramirez's introduction into the movie was like as over the top as it gets. And
hello, I'm a peacock.
Exactly.
Dude, come on, let's be real. I would wear the hell out of that outfit, though.
You would, sir. Bomb outfit. I mean,
even as a kid before I cared about things like costume design and all that, I was like, that is just a magnificent outfit. It's great.
Yeah, it is.
It's wonderful.
And I also wanted to note that at some point he says, "Now, bendejo," and that was so funny. But yeah, those are my notes on that.
Well, yeah, we're off to a good start.
Yeah, so okay, we're gonna start this with a little piece of trivia. Okay.
Ooh. I'll fail.
What's the most famous line from this film?
Oh, there can be
only one.
I didn't fail.
How many times is that said in the film?
Oh man, is it twice?
No, it's a good bit more than that.
Oh, okay.
It's not as much as you might think.
6.
You nailed it, Nessie.
Wow.
It's exactly 6 times.
Yeah, I had to start running through each one in my head, so I knew I wasn't going to make it. But
it's every time you get a pair of immortals that meet. That's kind of like their.
Yeah, but it didn't happen exactly there, but it was 6 times, and one of them was Brenda asking, "What does there can be only one mean?"
Right.
What is that?
Her being the little detective that she isn't because she works in a forensics lab.
Well, they piled a lot of hats on the one on the lady, on the,
one kind of main female character
that they gave it. Yeah. And, so she's a forensic person. She's a novelist.
She loves metallurgy.
Yeah.
Let's just put all the hats on her because, well, we got to get this in there somehow.
Yeah, and she wears some great pants because she can, chuckle with the boys.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The walks through the station house or whatever, the back and forth that she has to have with the detectives and stuff. Yeah. Got to play the game.
Oh, the sexual harassment.
You gotta play.
Yeah, when they said, "Oh, you look great, Brenda," like, patriarchy.
No.
So,
that was pretty bad. I had an interesting experience. I always watch these like the morning of, so it's as fresh as possible. But I have not seen this movie in more than 2 decades, probably.
Oh yeah, it's been quite a while. But
so I remembered parts of it, but man, I did not remember this movie. And I gotta say, I came out the other side of that experience this morning, feeling like awe-inspired and rolling my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great premise.
Right. Yeah. No, it's kind of a badass idea, And
there are things in the film that I was truly thought were great. Okay, Queen did the soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just say Queen, and we all loved it. I know we did.
All the Queen.
Move on.
All the Queen. Yes.
Right. But I actually found a lot of the camera work in this film to be really, really good. A lot of the cinematography, the way they chose to light things, the way they chose to place and or move the camera, a lot of the angles they were choosing. I really enjoyed the cinematography in a way that
I liked a lot of the overhead shots when they were doing the training montages. There's
a lot of low angle shots.
Yeah.
Too, and in the beginning during the wrestling scene, it's probably a wire cam shot.
The one that way over the.
And it comes comes from the stands. It comes down over the.
Shout out to the great 80s wrestling team of the Freebirds, just putting it out there.
But that shot where it comes down onto the arena floor and then goes back up onto Christopher Lambert sitting there with that eye light on him.
He's just
Christopher Lambert.
Okay.
Lambert.
Where is he from anyway?
He's French.
Yeah.
Oh, is he? Okay.
French Canadian.
By the way, we were challenged to give a shout out to the Christopher Lambert laugh.
I saw that.
I've got.
You just did.
Lambert laugh in my notes.
Good
Me too.
job.
Hold on.
Oh God, I've loved that laugh since all the way back to the days of Mortal Kombat when he played Raiden.
Yeah, that was fun. That was fun.
Yeah.
But that's also another thing. I have to say, this has been. I wouldn't say that the film is my favorite part of the Highlander franchise. That goes to the series, but
no, there is no franchise. There can be only one. There was no Highlander 2 and 3. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, but there was a series. Sorry.
Okay, fine.
There was a series.
But that said, I still have also been a fan of the film as well since I was I want to say 95, 96. So I would have been about 12 years old. So I'm always that sort of 12-year-old coming back to this movie every time I go back to revisit it. And I've seen it. I can fairly confidently say, Stephen, I've seen it far more than you have over the years.
I will concede.
So I am admittedly forgiving towards a lot of stuff with this. Things that I would rip to shreds on other films, but what can I say?
Look, nostalgia goggles are a real thing. I get them too, but like I am going to rip this movie a little bit as we go on. But I do need to take a moment. Hold on, Nessie.
Sorry.
I just need to take a moment to say hi to Beth. Haven't seen you in a while, friend. Hope you're doing well.
Hi, Beth.
Always lovely to see you, Beth. A bright spot in our otherwise dark and dreary world.
Yes.
Okay, what were you saying, Nessie?
Oh, I forget.
Success.
It's okay.
Which by
if
the
it's
way,
important, it'll never come back to you.
I also want to note that I am adorned with a couple of things today, and these are not specifically related to the movie, but just to showcase my Highlander fandom, I'm wearing a necklace that is actually the Watcher's symbol from the television series.
Wow.
And this...
Let's see that again.
Let's see the swag.
Wow.
And this is a 100th episode T-shirt from the series, which was the episode that featured the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. So I've had this shirt for like over 20 years, and let me tell you something. This shirt has zero holes. I have gotten new shirts that have gotten holes within weeks. And this shirt over 20 years old is still holding up. It's a miracle. And it fits.
It is. It's a laundry miracle.
Immortal.
I guess it killed all the other immortal shirts.
Yes, it did.
There can be only one.
And for those of you who are worried about it, we will not be beheading each other during this stream.
Oh no!
When it comes to podcasts, there
not
can
during
be
this
more
stream.
than one.
No. We might do it on our off hours for fun with dice.
Right.
It's got to be in a back alley, away from, and it got to be away from my cell phone. So,
I almost forgot to show off the big thing that I brought along here. I got this from the back in the days of the Highlander catalog. They actually had such a thing where there was no going online to order things.
Right,
you had to order things through a catalog. This is the 5th season of Highlander, the series, on VHS.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes.
I bow to your street cred.
The physical media. All right. Are you done flexing on us, John?
Yeah. Okay. I'm done.
I bow to your street cred.
All I was going to say is like this movie hit. I was probably, I was a teenager. It was great to go see in the theater. And then later we would watch it. I remember having watch parties where we had all my nerd friends, college friends, whatever. We'd get together on a Friday night instead of going out drinking. We'd stay in drinking and watch movies. And this was on the schedule. I know at least once or twice. So yeah, it was a big favorite among us nerds at the time, like mid to late 80s. Yeah, we were all watching it.
Nice.
So, yes.
Yeah, John, I saw it the first time around the same time you did, right around like 96. And I was probably 14, 15 at the time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I've never seen a single episode of the Highlander series, unfortunately. Fake fan, I know.
I have.
And I'm going to rip this movie some too. So like, prepare to hate on me.
Yeah, and it's not like the series was perfect either. Especially the first season had quite a lot of bad. But it really did mature into something, keeping in mind that it was still a 90s TV series. Mm-hmm. So it's, couldn't hope to have the quality of like a TV show nowadays, but it really established great like character arcs, and the acting was quite good, and it had a lot of soul to it, which I think is what I loved about it. Whereas I think the movie has that in a lot of the flashback sequences. And so I think the tone of those scenes was what they strove for in the television series, at least once it got really rolling. So
well, fans of the movie were really just like hungry for that backstory, the mythology behind the immortals, the quickening, all those stories.
Come from?
a taste of some, the characters, but we wanted more. It's like, this is a really great idea. You got, a foundation to build, some great stories on.
Mm-hmm.
So,
speaking of which, did you guys ever, speaking of the franchise, I mean, did you guys ever run into the role-playing game?
No.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I ran with some nerds. And,
wait a second. Yeah, I ran with some nerds too.
Yep.
Okay.
Good.
I think I might have seen it on the shelf at my local nerd bookstore.
It was a little niche. It was a little pretty niche, just like the one for like the Doctor Who role playing. That was still kind of niche.
Mm-hmm.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah. Yep.
Pew, pew.
But I will say, I do want to say something more about what you guys were talking about the concept being so good. I mean, just imagine, this is like it's a very outlandish concept, but it's fresh, it's original, you'd never get a concept like this in a movie nowadays.
No, it is very unique.
Yeah,
and like there is the seed of something great here, I think. Mm-hmm. But here, all right, my biggest complaint. Let's get it out there. You ready?
Let's go for it.
In a movie about immortal sword fighters, the sword fights are not very good. They're not really that well choreographed, and except for the very last one where you get that shot and it tracks them for a good long while, and they're backlit in silhouette, the Kurgan and Connor, not Connor.
Well, again, you say it's this. It has the seeds of something great. I actually think that Highlander the series did achieve in that greatness, at least from my perspective of being a fan of it back in the day. And the sword fighting also, was much better in the series. So I think again, it's exactly as you say. This is sort of the germ of an idea that I think reached its fruition in the series. But
plus they didn't have the whole every fight sounds like a blacksmith's. Ting, 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 ting.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad. Yeah. The long resonance. So
the sparks.
So that's really my number one complaint, is that really the sword fights are not that good, not that interesting to watch. I don't feel like they're very well edited, because sometimes it feels like the camera's too close and the cuts are too fast. So you just like, what is even happening here?
Yeah.
What is even happening here?
What is even happening?
But so that.
Yes, let us talk about.
It's so funny because my nostalgia, my nostalgia defense is like going into overload inside. I'm like, leave my movie alone.
The gratuitous backflips, Potter, you nailed it.
It was so random.
It really was.
Yeah, it was like going, just like the duel is out of nowhere.
Well, again, that's showing like implying the history of a character.
Sure.
During a fight scene.
Absolutely, I totally agree. It's just like it kind of like it hit you, and there was no setup for it. It was kind of out of nowhere. So
in the studio's defense, those backflips were actually cut out of the US theatrical version, which they cut out some stuff because they were afraid they were confusing an American audience. But with the exception maybe that, I think a lot of their decisions were bad, because I think the full European cut, which is what's generally available now, is much stronger. Like there's a moment early on when Connor is watching the wrestling match and he's flashing back to battle scenes in Scotland. They cut those out, so the first time you get anything of Scotland is the flashback, like when it pans up, and they thought that was less confusing. I disagree.
Beautiful transition, though.
That's a great transition, but it shouldn't be like the first glimpse. That shouldn't be the first glimpse you get. There's
something off here. Somebody's got some weird thing going on with them. Yeah. I thought it was really cool in that particular scene when the one you're talking about that they cut, that his flashbacks, we get his flashbacks as he's flashing back, like having PTSD kind of flashbacks, which I thought was a really interesting choice, especially for 1986, where, they're talking like this guy's been through hundreds of years of war, and like, why does he keep joining these wars if it's so traumatizing to him? But yeah, because the wrestling match was like this Rumble Royale, every man for himself, just like this quickening contest. So,
but the one thing I will say is I asked myself a lot more questions on this viewing than I have in the past. Maybe it's because I knew I was going to be discussing it, but it's like the first question that popped in my head is like, dude, why is Connor at a wrestling match? He doesn't seem to be enjoying himself.
Yeah. He must have followed the guy there.
This is 1984. This is the peak of the WWE, the early enough. Of WWE. They were selling out Madison Square Garden.
Back when it was WWF.
WWF. It was it was a very 80s thing to go and watch wrestling. It was fun, man.
And like if
it was over the top.
If you come into this movie, you come into this movie not knowing that it's an 80s movie. I think it opening up with the wrestlers running out should tip you off.
Yeah, Queen.
I like Lazy Princess's. I'm sorry. I thought Lazy Princess had a really good response about why maybe the sword fights weren't as good. They're all just rusty from not having practiced their actual sword fighting, because most of the immortals have been dead for a long time.
Well, that's actually something people have said about the TV show, which is like it's supposed to be the time of the gathering in the TV show too, but there's a lot of immortals in the TV show. It's like
there was one every episode, right?
Yes. Yeah. So it's like it makes more sense in the movie when they're actually down to just a few immortals.
Well, we are
left.
just discussing the film, because like they could retcon whatever they wanted when they made the TV show anyway.
True.
Yeah,
and they did.
So,
this series is all about retcons.
Yeah,
and we won't even talk about the second movie that doesn't exist.
But there could be only one movie.
There's so much fun to be had in that discussion, though.
Okay, we'll probably touch on the quickening a little bit towards the end.
Right. So
Wesley Snipes and his, didn't he have nipple rings on his breastplate?
First of all, that wasn't Wesley Snipes.
No, it wasn't. It was Mario Van Peebles.
That's number 3. That's the one that skips completely over.
Right, it forgets that number 2 happened at all.
So, in the interest of totally overanalyzing everything, it occurred to me that the parking garage, and you've got all these cars that are just sitting there going nowhere, right? And that kind of could, probably not on purpose, represent like the stagnation of the immortals, because they can't have families, they don't really age very much over their, what's his name was Ramirez was 2,400 years old, and he just looked like he was 55 or whatever. So
but he was rocking that peacock.
Oh yeah,
we paid homage to the peacocks.
Yeah.
It was glorious.
We did.
It was very glorious.
It was lovely.
Y'all were talking about it's starting out with the wrestling.
Yeah, 1984.
Well, when they started coming out, I was like, that's the Freebirds,
Yeah, they probably weren't going for the symbolism. They were probably just kind of saying, we need a secluded place to have this fight. Yeah. So
we also need to blow things up.
Right.
To show that release of, there's a narrative reason for wanting to do that. So they can show you like this gigantic energy release for whatever is happening.
This transfer of power.
Yeah.
But even the Kurgan is like, this is, he knows that there's rules, and he actually plays by the rules.
He plays by one rule.
There can be only one.
That's not true, because he doesn't attack the guy in the church.
Well, he doesn't attack the guy in the church. That's the only rule I can think of.
Rule, yeah.
Yep. But I mean, if it's the only rule you can think of, he follows it. So, what was that?
It's not just churches; it's hallowed ground.
Oh, hallowed ground.
Yeah, okay, holy ground, but
holy
still,
ground.
It's not like he fights with honor or anything. Like there's no other rules for him.
No.
Well, that's like.
Well, he is a complete psychopath.
That was always the thing, though, throughout the series. It's like the holy ground rule is the thing that none of the immortals will ever dare break, unless you get into sequels that didn't happen.
Right.
So there are.
Then you're going into like the whole good versus, eternal battle of good versus evil, which is kind of, where this is stemming from, because it's obviously Ramirez had, put forth the question, there's two sides in this fight, and if the wrong one wins, there'll be, subjugation of Earth. Yeah, that's forever. Yeah.
Yep.
So
because at the end of this, he does become omniscient.
Right. Becomes one with everything.
Yeah, the Dalai Lama.
Yep.
Yeah, in a way.
Which it's like didn't seem like that much of a big thing to me in like today's climate, not to get political, but it's like, okay, yeah, so you can hear what everybody's thinking and conceivably help people understand each other, but are they going to listen? Probably not.
Yeah. Just like the NSA, he can hear everything.
No such agent.
Right. So, can we go back really quickly to the fight, the flashback fight, the battle in Renaissance Scotland, really quick? So I actually looked it up, and the sigils that they had for the flags are actually correct.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they had the MacLeod, the bull on white with the blue mountain covered in red flame. And then the Frasers was, and their house words. They even have house words. They're called Hold Fast. And then the Frasers have 3 white flowers on a blue field. And they actually represented those correctly. That was really, simple versions of them as though they had been, from a long time ago.
Was there actually a battle in 15...
I did not look that up.
So I tried to figure it out, and I could not.
The Highlands. It was clan versus clan.
Yeah, like it was not a big thing, no matter, at any rate.
Oh, Brock vouches for the Tartans. He would know. Trust me.
Okay.
MacLeod Tartans were actually correct.
Okay.
Nice.
I thought the battle. It was not well done. I'm sorry.
No shit, Steven.
It was not well done.
Right. They paid attention to the wrong things.
Right. They got historically accurate, bardry and symbols of everything. They got the house words, but
it's like, I'm sorry, but like the whole point of even showing the what was going on is just to get Connor and the Kurgan together in that moment. It's I mean, I get where you're coming from, Stephen, but it's like I could not care less, honestly.
I mean, the action is really poorly executed. Him walking around going, "Nobody will fight me," and I'm just
because they were ordered not to fight him.
Yeah, I know, but his delivery there.
Oh, it was awful.
I don't think he understood the majority of what he was saying. That's the thing. It's
and it was his first battle. He'd never been in a battle before.
I think Christopher Lambert did the best he could under the circumstances.
And he was just dumbfounded, Yeah, he's dumbfounded. It's his first battle. He's expecting, honor and glory or whatever, a young man going off to war back in that time expected, and honor his clan and everything. And he's just confused to start with. He's confused anyway. He knows nothing. He is like, he's Jon Snow in that moment. He knows nothing. And it's the anti-battle of the bastards. Nobody wants to fight him, Yeah. He's just like standing there in the middle of all this, and people are dying all around him, and he can't, anytime he goes to help somebody or fight somebody, they go the other way.
There was no semblance of order.
Yeah, there was no order. the battle was very just random, all hit or miss here and there.
While Steven's consumed with how the fighting doesn't make any sense, I remember just being awed by the Kurgan's whole get up in that scene. And
I was literally about to bring that up as the
He's like the cross between He-Man and Skeletor, you know, like
right.
And then the way his horse rears up and the lightning strikes.
All the Black Knight notes are there.
Yes.
You know, the mystery fighter on the battlefield. Who is that? He's different from everybody else, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And these things. Oh, I was just going to say.
You go ahead. Guess first. Sorry. No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. I was just going to say, like, they seem to have this like electric fetish kind of thing for their like, you know, the Kurgan had the lightning and then all of the exploding, like in the parking garage and in the alleyway when the Kurgan took the other guy. And I mean, it's just really not tech friendly. Like the cars just shit themselves. It's kind of
pretty basically.
What are you doing?
You have to keep in mind in the early 80s, there was a big fad over the electric blue lightning.
So
there was those little balls that had the lightning and stuff in them. You could get them at Spencer's, just put batteries in them, and then it had this electric ball. It was like a little tiny Faraday field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I hope I'm not hurting anybody's feelings when I say that like aspects of this movie just didn't work for me. One thing that did work though was the Kurgan. I actually found him way better than I remembered him being. I kind of loved that character. He was so fun to watch, and that's what I was trying to say before is let's put some respect on that man's name. Clancy Brown, I think, killed it as that character.
I mean, I think this movie is why Clancy Brown is Clancy Brown. I think everything sort of, you know, was spun out of how outrageously awesome he is in this movie because he just goes in directions that are insane.
Like he would be at home in a Mad Max movie. It's like he jumped genres, crawled out of the desert of post-apocalyptic Australia, and he's in downtown New York. You know, he's just this another over-the-top thing
character
in this film. You know, they did a novelization of the film. And in that they, you know, it stayed pretty true, but they also filled in a lot of the Kurgan's backstory of, you know, how he got to where he is, his training with other immortals, and like, so it really does flesh his character out if you're interested in learning a little bit more.
I've wanted to read that for years, but I remember when I was younger, and at least once Amazon started to become a thing, I remember looking for it, and it was long since out of print. I don't know if I'd be able to. I'm sure on eBay or something I could track down a copy. But that would be interesting to read. It's just.
It was the total package.
I think Kurgan is like a prime example of like there's been this trend in movies where you kind of make the villain as like, you know, sort of the flip side of, you know, the hero, kind of similar but different. That's not what this is like. Kurgan is as far removed as possible from Connor, and he's just outrageous and over the top, and it's beautiful.
Well, they're contrasting something between, like, you got these two immortals. It's more the immortal versus immortal thing. One is dedicated his existence to total war. He's done nothing but train and fight and chaos, where, you know, Connor's become an antique stealer. You know, he's spent his immortality, you know, learning culture. Yeah, he's like the Renaissance immortal, you know.
Stayed on the DL.
And stayed, you know, lived his life in secret.
Yeah.
being out there in the middle of everything.
Yeah, because you look at all the other immortals in this movie, and they're all out there. Like, you look at Ramirez, you look at, hold on, I've got a list of the characters. Castigier was his name.
Okay.
Like,
I love Castigier.
Yeah.
Castigier appears in 2 scenes in this movie, and I love him.
He's great.
He's great.
That was another thing that kind of like came out of nowhere for me, was like halfway through the film, brand new character, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, they had a few other, the very few that were left. They barely touched on them in the film. One was killed off screen. He was the guy they found beheaded in New Jersey. He didn't even get, any on-screen time. So,
wasn't that the fight in the parking garage? Was that not the fight in the parking garage?
No.
Oh, okay. My bad.
No, that's the one where the cop's like, he's beheaded 2 nights ago in New Jersey. You ever get over to New Jersey, Nash?
You ever get to New Jersey?
One of the things I watched this movie, this film several times, a lot of times, and something that clicked for me this time was his secretary.
Oh, she was definitely in love with him. I have things written about, because there are 4 women in his life.
Yeah, Rachel.
Because he's such a good guy, he rescues orphans.
Right. Rachel was that orphan that he rescued.
And then keeps them around, and clearly she's developed some kind of feelings for him, and he's sending her mixed signals, and it's just.
Well, I mean, she's a full-grown woman now, but he knew her as a child, and he's still 450 years old. So what is he gonna, talk to her about? He's done this.
He loves her as his child.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
But keep her around. I don't know.
She knew his secret.
Yeah, she did know his secret.
Yeah, and
maybe, she's
kind of like his Alfred.
Yeah, she's part of his life. She's part of the inner circle of these immortals. People.
I always saw their relationship
as much for protection as anything else.
Yeah, I always saw their relationship as developing from sort of daughter-father relationship to almost her being a mothering figure when she was older. So the reason she's there is because she's family.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's
he couldn't have children.
The only child he never had.
Yeah, he raised her from a child.
That is not exactly my read on it, but I am willing to
Please give us your read on it.
Well, my read on it is that she had some level of interest in him romantically, but she understood the complications, and so did he. But I don't know. I just felt like he was giving her mixed signals, but maybe that's just me misreading her intention.
I think the reason why I don't pick up on that maybe is because since I first saw this when I was just a little kid, always looking at Connor as a hero, through the eyes of a kid. So that wouldn't have really registered with me.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Y'all are going to make me watch this again.
Go do it, man.
And that's get out.
Good.
So in addition to the chuckle, which we were tasked with talking about for a moment, my gosh, is Lambert, he is so good at shouting in pain, because he just gets his ass handed to him again and again and again, and he's just he's really good at that. And
that was his whole audition, I heard.
Oh, was it?
No.
Oh.
He probably really excelled at that because he was like, "This I understand."
Right.
I will say something you were commenting on, Christine. I don't know if it might have been before we started, but I think you were right. There is no Wilhelm scream in this movie. There's possibly some other archival screams used, but not the most famous one of all.
Right.
Which, thank God, because I hear it enough.
Well, like every movie in the 80s and 90s had it, every single one. And so the fact that it didn't seemed kind of just stand out to me.
I mean, even the Two Towers uses it, which I always found hilarious. It's because I think they wanted to be in that tradition of Star Wars, which always used it. But yeah, it seems to pop up in a lot of places. So it's surprising that it's not there, but at the same time, it's like that's kind of refreshing.
Yeah, indeed.
There were parts that was kind of tacky. You know,
absolutely. I'm not saying there wasn't.
I mean, the whole thing would stick to a wall. It's so tacky, but you know, it's a good movie nonetheless.
Yeah.
So
it was enjoyable. You know, it was enjoyable.
Aaron, it's when during the Battle of Helm's Deep when one of the elves goes like flying over the wall.
Yep.
And it actually gave me great joy at the time, because at the time I wasn't as sort of learned in the history of film as I am now, and so it kind of, I knew it as the tradition of like Star Wars movies that the Wilhelm scream was using that, and so I always felt like it was paying homage to you know, like this kind of
tradition.
And so it worked for me. But they also use it in the second Hobbit movie in the extended cut in the most inappropriate place you could imagine, when Thorin's father gets killed, and it's like, really?
Yeah,
that's this emotional moment, and you want to throw in the Wilhelm?
I know it's the Wilhelm scream, but for me, it is forevermore the Boba Fett scream.
Oh God!
Right?
That's funny.
But it for me, like, side note, like that for me was totally like representative of what the Hobbit films were in comparison to Lord of the Rings. Just gotta say that the fact that the Wilhelm would get used in a like super dramatic moment, it's like, it says it all, folks.
Yeah. Indeed.
So there's go ahead.
No, go ahead. Seriously, go ahead.
Okay. I want to circle back to Ramirez for a minute.
Okay.
So I remember him being a much bigger part of this film. He was literally in the movie for 20 minutes. His characters are introduced.
And he's actually not even in, like, if you don't see him on camera, he's not in it, because they had him for such a short amount of time. There's, if you're watching like a shot during the training montage and all that, if his face isn't on camera, it's a double.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's why you'll notice a couple shots where it's like close-ups of his face and he's like breathing, like, you know, it's like they just took a bunch of random shots of his face that they could place periodically throughout.
I didn't know that, but
I didn't know that either.
But I remember him being a much bigger part of the film, and I guess his character was such a big deal. First of all, he's a fun, flashy character, and second of all, I mean, Sean Connery was already Sean Connery at that point. Like most of the rest of this cast, either this is very early in their career, you know, and maybe they got bigger afterwards, like especially Clancy Brown did.
Right.
But he was already pretty darn famous, so maybe that's why we remember it, because it's this ridiculous Egyptian, Scottish, Spanish,
well, and in
Japanese sword,
and in fairness, I mean, he has a very big impact on the movie, even if he's not in for much of it. But yeah, but it's funny because obviously they really sold, you know, him being in the film. I remember I bought the director's cut VHS tape, which I don't have anymore. Otherwise I would have showed it off. I know, but guys, you know how much stuff I have.
Yeah.
These two shelves, that's only half of it.
Wow.
So like the VHS tapes had to go at some point. But the director's cut, it was the 10th anniversary of VHS tape. It had like a sword, the McLeod sword down the middle, and on one side Christopher Lambert's face, and on the other side Sean Connery's face. And I remember thinking that Sean Connery was like the villain of this movie before I saw it, because it was like Christopher Lambert and Sean Connery. And then I watched it. I was like, oh no, he's actually got a smaller part, and he's the mentor. Yeah.
Mentor.
Did anybody notice the total lack of when they fell through the roof?
Oh, and the water did not follow?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Continuity error.
Set, not so much. So, that totally.
The fight at the keep scene between, Ramirez and
when he went down.
That was as over the top, I think, as it could get. You've got the lightning flashing outside. You've got the flimsy. I mean, these had to be the flimsiest castle walls ever built.
Oh my God, the foam stone.
Just like
see, you guys are listing all these things as criticisms, and I just find them incredibly endearing.
It's campy. It's great.
I love it because of that. I do.
It's just.
I gotta point it out though.
Yeah, and all that's left is just this stairway to nowhere, just hanging out there. I
have this note about that. So the staircase is like the what's his name again? The
Kurgan.
Yeah, that one. And it's like, sorry, for me, he's the "tonight you sleep in hell" guy. So he up at the top, he's got this staircase, and they're all the way at the top, and it's representing like this ascension of him to the only one, that he has to be.
Yeah.
And then of course the staircase breaks, and he's never going to get there. So that was again me reading way too much into this movie.
I love that.
Okay, let's talk about this fight scene, because there's a couple of things. First of all,
it's awesome.
Okay, first of all, it's not awesome.
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'm glad you enjoy it, John. The stairs are going the wrong way. Nice, Dave. Nice.
Yeah.
The stairs are going the wrong way. If you want to fight backing up the stairs, and the stairs will be constructed in such a way that you have the most open area on the right side of your body, so you can fight right-handed.
Right-handed. Because most people are right-handed. Yeah.
Huge advantage in that fight, even though he didn't have the high ground.
He didn't have the high ground
because he had the open side to his right side, so he could maneuver his weapon more easily. Mm-hmm. Another problem is, Heather, get the hell out of there! Already.
Stop screaming! Yeah,
oh my
seriously.
God.
Seriously.
Yes. Oh my God.
The screaming.
I'm just like, why? Leave. Go.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I think then of all the woman characters in this movie, she, I think, is the best one. She's my favorite.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
But
I don't blame you.
But I was in that moment, I'm just like, girl, you gotta go.
She was like the scream queen in the horror flicks at that moment, where
she was Jamie Lee Curtis.
I just can't leave. I'm so yeah.
Exactly, Mom. Run, Heather, run.
Exactly. Run, Heather.
But like it was.
But then
of course,
I thought she would be dead. Okay.
Hitting the walls and knocking the whole castle over. I'm just like, okay, the Kurgan is like demon possessed or something, which maybe he really is. Like, I'm sure there's lore, but like if we're looking at this as a standalone movie, given what we've seen at the end of when another immortal dies and we've got the electric effects and stuff blows up.
Yeah.
And we get the same thing when the Kurgan dies, but when he dies, we also get this sort of like
ghosts
and demons.
Yeah. He has killed so many immortals. I think it's what they're trying to say. He's killed so many.
Because he's got all of them except
for what the ones that Connor's killed.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I took his. I especially took note of the sort of the demon shapes, of that final quickening, and so it actually, for me, if again looking at this as sort of a standalone thing, it hints at these ancient old origins of the immortals. What's involved with that sort of demonic powers, or or whatnot. Sure. So I think you're right to go there, Stephen. And of course, this the story is always better when they don't actually try and answer that question of where it came from.
Right. Yeah. Leave the mystery. But oh man, I had something and then it flew out of my ear.
Well, his girlfriend from the village had no qualms about saying he was from the devil. So
right, total zealot. Total.
Yeah, she turned like real quick.
Yeah, he's a witch. Burn him.
And I was checking to see, but it was like a generation before, like the Scottish witch burning. So it's all in that general time frame where
it's about to blow up.
It's all about to blow up. It's very superstitious. You have the King of Scotland is putting out books about demonology and how witches tried to destroy Scotland. So there was a big anti that
was a big thing with King James, wasn't it?
I think it was King James and his
the one who was the sixth and then became the first. Yeah, that's weird. But,
when the thrones united.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so witchcraft was like, it was going through the Highlands then. They were having all the burnings, the witch burnings and whatnot. So coming out of that society, he probably did think there was something demonic or wrong. It was very unnatural.
Yeah, what other context would he have to put it in,
Right, his they had the priest that was like going into battle with them,
Right.
Was he like a cousin or something? I think they were all cousins of some kind.
Right.
But and even having his own family to turn on him like that from the the belief in the supernatural and its evil, it's always got that. It's just that connection between the good and evil God and the devil or what have you.
Except there was one good family member, and I know you guys recognize Mr. James Cosmo.
Angus was a good cousin.
In my notes it says Old Bear. I just recognized him.
I just recognized.
It's like his second appearance on the screen when I recognized him. No, it was when he was telling him to walk out of there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he would at least cut his ropes. He had to go out with the thing on.
Right. Well, I think he didn't because then maybe he would have gotten cast out too.
Because
he had been seen to be on his side somehow or whatever. This way, he was just like, "Get out of here!"
The whole thing was that he was saying, "We'll banish him, not we're gonna,
right, exactly.
let him go to live a happy life."
Right. Exactly.
He's but he's good towards those Jon Snow types, I guess.
I guess so.
Especially since he knew nothing.
Yeah.
So really quickly about Heather before we move on from that whole thing of his sort of second romance.
Right.
So I felt like even though they really at the end of her life, they really had the worst age makeup I've ever seen. It was so bad. It was like they dyed her eyebrows white and put patchy stuff on her cheeks to make it look like wrinkles and then called it a day.
Well, you know what makes it worse is that they actually in one of their sequels, I think the fourth one, they actually brought the actress back to do a flashback when she was supposed to be older, but he was older too, so it didn't really work. But but it's to actually see the actress older, and then you go back and watch that, and you're like, no, that's not.
Yeah, that did not work for me. But even though that was pretty bad, Lambert played the romance with her and the her passing and the candles and all of that. He played it really well. It was very well acted and heartfelt. And I felt how much he loved her. You know what I mean?
And this is why really all the Scotland stuff in general, but especially this section is kind of why I've always been forgiving about the stuff that doesn't work for me in this movie, because just like, especially this sequence when it flashes back and, you know, the Who Wants to Live Forever music by Queen, and there's just so much, you know, breathtaking emotion, and you feel the love between the characters, and it's so beautiful. And
well, she played it well too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah. I mean, the guy just wanted a normal life. He never wanted any of that.
Right.
Any of the immortality. He just spent his, you know, that's all he ever wanted, and he couldn't have it.
Yeah. And actually an aspect of his character, which I actually never picked up on when I was younger. I guess maybe just life experiences just kind of change your view on things. But the thing he says to Brenda right before we flash back is, don't you ever think about anything except what you want? But he's thinking of himself, and he's reflecting on his selfish decision to
be with her,
to stay and be with her, because that, you know, which is, you know, she may very well have wanted to stay with him, and we didn't see all those years in between, but I think he definitely feels guilt over perhaps robbing her of a normal life with a family and all that.
Yeah.
So.
And of course, she loves him enough that she accepted it a long time ago. You know, so
I mean,
I agree. There was real chemistry between those two, which I did not feel with Brenda, which I did not feel with.
No. It was very manufactured.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it is what it is, you know. But I
they
did
had a good romance.
They did. Again, she was my favorite of his sort of like love interest characters that were the women in his life that were. She was my favorite.
She was the one. You know, she was the one.
For sure.
Yeah. And also, they said in the novelization, the ending was expanded somewhat, where he went back to Scotland and went back to their little croft in the Highlands.
The one that he burnt down?
There was just like some stones or whatever left, and he went to the graves and whatever.
That's cute.
Said goodbye.
That's good. That's good.
See, now I'm gonna have to look into it and then try and find it. Like, can't they just put out a Kindle version? That would be the easiest.
Don't ask me. I don't know how to read.
So, did you guys have anything to talk about with that big chase scene with the Kurgan guy?
Where
he ran away from
where he cuts the top off the car and
like,
no, I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, I will. So basically, so he cuts the top off the car and he grabs, like, the guys are just like, please don't hurt us. And he grabs the fella and he throws him out of the car. And then the wife is like screaming for him, like, Daddy, help me. Where are you going with my car? Not my wife.
Right there.
But with my, I know. Yeah, I totally, car. Where are you going with my car? I'm like, you are a dickbag, and I don't feel bad for you getting thrown on the ground at all.
Aemy, where are you?
So, and then there was that other time when the helicopter was looking,
my God.
When he was like, hold it right there. I'm in a helicopter and I can't follow you.
Where did it come from? Where did the helicopter come from?
I have no idea.
Pop down, shine some lights. Wait a second. Isn't this New York? How do they get helicopters in those little alleys?
I don't know. No,
not
so much.
I mean, LA, they do that, but
but LA is not quite the same like verticality as New York.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
y'all, it is 7:00 Eastern. That means it's time for the mid-roll.
That's probably where they shot it. They shot it in LA.
They probably did.
Yep.
So this is the part of the stream where we stop talking about the thing we were just talking about. talk about something else, and then go back to the thing after it. So we still got about an hour of content for you, but this is the part where I say, oh yeah, please remember to like the video and subscribe if you haven't, because our almighty Lord, the YouTube algorithm, is the only way you get noticed these days. And I thank you heavily for doing that. I will tell you, go subscribe to all of these wonderful people's stuff. Links to their various undertakings are in the description down below. Christine, I've got a link to your Twitter and your Podbean link that's on your Twitter bio. So
yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I will ask you all what's coming up, Christine, as a guest. What do you know? I know you do the Dresden Files podcast.
Yes. So we just finished book 1, 9 episodes we did for book 1, and right now I'm in the works. I've got it written and recorded. We're in the editing phase for a bonus episode. We're going to do a bonus episode in between each book, and this one is by Twitter poll, by demand of Twitter poll, the mythology of Mab.
And I am so down with that. I can't wait to get that released and in my ears.
It's gonna be cool. There's some surprises. There's some extra bits, and it's gonna be a monster episode. I had to I had to upgrade my Podbean account in order to have enough space on there to upload it and to do future episodes. So I'm like, now I'm bought in to the whole
You're
thing.
official.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're official now.
Yeah, when you start spending money on your hobby like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. There you go.
Oh wow.
So yeah, that's what I've got coming up. Should be in the next, I don't know, sometime in the next week. So
Right on. So you Dresden Files fans, look forward to that. I haven't read it, I told you that.
Okay, we forgive you. We forgive you. It's your loss. So
it is your loss.
It's very, very big.
I've been reading them since the beginning, so I'm down with it. I'm all up on it. I'm fully vested.
Yeah, I've actually read the first book, but it was many years ago, and it's just one of those things that, for whatever reason, I didn't continue on with. I'm hoping to attack it again at some point, but that time is not now because I have like a million things that I still have to get to.
Yeah, Harry Dresden is the great American wizard. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. I mean, I would probably like it. I probably would. It's a matter
hopefully
of
they'll come out with a series that you can get into. They made a series maybe 15 years ago. There was one season and it was bad.
Yeah, it was really bad. Like, okay, the only part about it that I liked was the hockey stick. I thought that was very Dresden, even though it wasn't, canon at all. Yeah, it was very Dresden. But the rest of it, like, they watched a movie on his laptop. I'm like, what? There's no way, because they have the whole technology shits itself thing because of magic.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just remember something about like characters when I was reading the book, because I remember that season of that TV show was fresh in my mind. I hadn't watched it, but I'd seen like advertisements, and before I started reading the book, I was looking at like cast pictures and stuff, and I'm like, okay, this character does not look at all like this actor, and it was obvious that they took a lot of liberties.
Yeah. So the funny thing about that is that for the TV show, the blonde actress had tried out for Murphy and the brunette actress had tried out for Susan, but then they wound up switching the roles because their acting fit the other character better. So that was an interesting thing.
Okay, I'm going to cut off.
We're going to move on. We're going to move on. Yes.
Sorry.
Because I also got to ask John and Nessie. John, we're just going around the screen. What's coming up on here on John Webster Film?
Okay, so obviously you guys know we're still in the middle of a break before we transition over to the podcast. But I do have something to announce. Aemy and I actually decided on March 31st on my birthday to go ahead with a birthday live stream. So stop on by John Webster Film on that day. It'll be on a Wednesday. We're just gonna be hanging out. We haven't really figured out a topic yet, but I was thinking we might just talk about a couple movies maybe that I haven't gotten to, maybe some of my top movies. Just because I had talked to a couple of people who said they were still waiting for discussions on certain films that I had mentioned, and so we might just do a mixture of that and maybe AMA type stuff, and maybe we'll just hang out and have some fun. But that'll be on Wednesday, March 31st.
Nice.
Very nice.
Looking forward to it. Also looking forward to the podcast coming back. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've been missing my Joelf content.
Yeah, I know. We're coming soon. I was actually, before we decided on going for the birthday stream, I was thinking about sending out the first episodes maybe the weekend before that, but then I thought, no, maybe we'll just do the live stream first and then we'll get moving on that. But it's coming soon.
I'll be there if I can.
Cool.
Nessie, I know you got something coming up soon too.
I've got things. I'm not going to be doing anything else this month. I'm taking a little short hiatus myself. Just to be, work has been crazy. I haven't had the time to put into things that I want to. So I've had to postpone one of my upcoming episodes, but it'll be rescheduled, and we're going to finish out the Legends of Avalon series with Lady Gwen at a future date. April we've got covered, though. We've got 2 episodes. Hopefully we can get in 2 episodes, but definitely 1 episode of Bleep the Patriarchy, where we're going to have our discussion on toxic masculinity. Sir Micah of Clark. Stephen, is that a soft yes or a real yes?
It's all going to depend on what work schedule is, but yes.
Anyway, gonna have some guys on. You probably know them. Maybe this guy, possibly this guy, more like maybe this. It's a floating thing. Schedule,
right.
Whatever. We can schedule something. It may be on a different day than my normal stream day, but we're gonna get that. We're gonna get that toxic masculinity discussed, and got to get with Kelly about the Bleep Ahoy episode. Maritime misogyny and all that jazz. So those are things we got coming up, and a very special Mother's Day episode where we are going to have a special guest. Amy's mom is going to be joining us, so
nice.
We can meet Mama Blackfyre and get to know her. So that's going to be cool. Yep, bleep it, y'all. Then we're going to do a little break and rebranding, because I'm going to be starting in on the Mists of Avalon series, the books series, and that's going to take some time. So
that's a big fat book. I
read
it in college.
You're just trying to torpedo my reading schedule, aren't you, Nessie?
I'm trying to structure your reading schedule.
Hey, I agree, Nat.
Anyway,
it's a freaking incredible book, Stephen.
I'm really sure it is, but I literally just bought 7 new books.
Yikes. Yeah, you've got some homework.
Yes, he did. And I'm scared. I'm scared because he's our DM and he's going to try to kill us.
Oh, you froze up. What do you get? Oh,
Tasha's Cauldron. Yes. Yes.
See, I've got a whole
Lolo's guy.
Books
he's going to kill us.
Okay, but on a more serious note, I want to talk about what I've got coming up, or what we've got coming up,
Stephen.
I do not know everything that's in those books. That's why I got them. I know a lot of what's in there, but not all of it.
That 1% is really important.
It is.
That's the difference between life and death of a new character.
Okay, but seriously, come back in 2 weeks from today. On the schedule for that is Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We'll be discussing the first half of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I watched the first episode. I will tell you right now, it was fine. But that's as much as I'm willing to give it. It was fine. But, we'll be talking about it because it's a thing I'm watching and not hating.
There you go.
But I was a little bit at loss what to do next week, so I am actually going to... I don't really have a name for the stream yet, but it's going to be something like Life at the Intersection of Social Anxiety Disorder and Fan Community Engagement, which is a terrible title, but a great premise, I think.
I agree.
So there will be a better title forthcoming, but next week I am going to talk about... I did this about a year and a half ago. I talked about my struggle with, my anxiety, and where am I a year and a half later, especially a year into having built this really tight-knit community, or a year and a half into that, and at the same time, like surviving COVID and all of that stuff. So
Stephen, can I tell you something?
Yes.
Social anxiety, fandom engagement spells out safe.
Okay, I'm really glad we had you here for this. So
you're welcome.
All I have.
We're glad for a little bit more than that.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, that's not the only reason I'm glad you're here, but I'm glad you're here for that reason also.
Yay for also.
I'm just glad to meet you, man. It's nice to have you on.
Yeah, it's been great. Really, it has.
Thank you. I've had a really great time. I was stupid nervous about this before because I'd never done a live stream ever. And it was fun. It was good.
Yeah. We're here to help you through.
Right. Well, y'all, that was a long mid-roll, but that's fine. We talked about stuff, and stuff is what we're here to talk about. But I will direct you back to Highlander, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's very typical of a lot of the fantasy / sci-fi films that they were making at that time. I noticed that it all has this like dark, gritty kind of overtone. A lot of the scenes are shot in like monochrome almost, where it's just like it's the gritty streets of New York or the gritty streets of LA. You got like the back alley scenes and water's constantly dripping for some reason.
Oh, and I did take a look at where they shot the film. Obviously, all the flashback stuff in Scotland was shot in Scotland, and then the rest of the shooting was done in New York City and also in England.
Mm.
Oh, wait a minute. Aemy reminded me. Thank you, Aemy. I didn't do the shout out.
Doodle.
Patrons, I love you. You guys deserve this. I'm going to say each of your names twice. Okay, that seems ridiculous, but thank you, Aemy, for reminding me. I'll leave it up there. We do love to shout out our patrons. They pay for our StreamYard. Love you guys. And our patron high council consists of Lord John Bronsteen the Wise, aka Bronte, Sixto Sounds, also known as JP the Axe Grinder, and ridiculous Ed Tollett. Sean, I hope you're getting off work about now. You usually are getting off work about now. I hope we've kept you entertained for the last hour. But they are also backed up by the lords and ladies of the stream, not the least of which is that young lady right there who reminded me, Aemy Blackfyre, lover of poles. There's also Lady Leaf Underhill and Ryan Stavka, the Russian quartermaster. Thank you so much, y'all, for everything you do. Thank you for being a part of this wonderful family. We love you guys.
Yeah, not this week, Aemy. No,
just this one time, Aemy. You're not canceled.
But we still got half a show left, so
right. You never know what can happen.
But
okay.
like I was Yeah, like I was saying, that it's really reminiscent of like Terminator. How you had these like lighting shots, and as everything else was dark, and
everybody wore a trench coat. It was
everybody wore a trench coat.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
but
so
this is
this noir kind of feel to it. Not really digging deep into
what an ugly trench coat Christopher Lambert is wearing. The whole oh my god.
But this is the thing, like at least in this movie they had to explain away where he's keeping the sword.
Right.
In the TV show is like let's just pull it out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Right. With
my pocket.
Right. With Terminator it was like, the guy just had a trench coat because he stole one. There was no reason. It wasn't for the plot or anything. So I totally agree.
But I have to say, and sorry, like I can't not talk about the series. Like the series is like the big part of why I love Highlander so much. But it's like they had the character of Amanda in the TV series, and like even when she was wearing like some kind of skin tight outfit or something like that, she just pull out the sword like out of her back out of nowhere, and it was the most ludicrous thing in the world. So at least in the movie it's like he's wearing this big oversized trench coat to try and explain away where he's keeping his sword.
But
It's an ugly trench coat though. This dude is rich. He can get the designer trench coat.
And he gets an army surplus. I recognize that it's the olive drab military surplus trench coat from the mid to late 80s.
That's the thing that cracks me up, that when he guest starred on the pilot episode of the series, he still got that damn trench coat, the same one. Meanwhile, the other character, Duncan, was allowed to get much more stylish in his attire throughout the show. So. Mm-hmm.
He probably got the part because he had the trench coat in his closet. He showed up to the interview with it, and did his little monologue, and he's like, "Yeah, this is the guy."
In my notes, like my first note is masterful crane/wire cam shot, which you already talked about. My second note is comfortable shoes. Because like we made sure we got a really nice shot of his like little sneakers and his ugly trench coat, and I think he actually beat the guy at the very beginning because he had good shoes and that guy was wearing loafers. That backflip guy.
Yeah.
How was he doing backflips in loafers? That's
incredible. That's very, very skilled.
Yeah.
I guess instead of hiring an acting coordinator, they hired an acrobat or something, a gymnast.
Yeah, like doing a backflip or two away is fine, but like he backflipped all the way across the parking lot and then had to walk back, not knowing where his enemy was because.
This is my favorite mode of transportation. Backflip.
Yes, but as he was doing the backflips, every time his head goes down, he's looking under the cars.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
John.
That's an interesting theory.
Hey, I've thought about this movie a lot over the years.
You have. That is clear.
Look, this is. As we John, we kind of built some of our early banter on not agreeing about things,
But see, this is the thing. Like a lot of this is tongue cheek because I agree with you. It's not like I'm over here saying this is a masterpiece of cinema. It's it falls under the category of entertaining but not good.
Yeah.
But it's the foundation of something. It provided the foundation for something that is very dear to my heart. So that's why I'm kind of fighting back a little bit. But yeah, like I see all your points. It's just I have to gleefully defend.
Please do.
Part of my childhood.
Look, it is. That's what we're here for, man.
I mean, it is definitely a product of its time.
Yeah.
You know, this film is. We're
was
not
this around the same time that that Beauty and the Beast was on TV? The one that
I want to say
George
that was
R.
a little bit
Martin wrote?
later.
Was it? Okay.
You know, I will Google it.
Okay.
But yeah,
I seem to remember them being in.
There's like a decade of television.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a decade of television that had a lot of these types of tropes, and you know, it could have springboarded from here because you know, just having just the mystery of the unknown, the uncanny. You know, we've done it's like John was saying earlier. It's really hard to find something new, a new idea, a new take in a well-saturated, you know, field like, you know, television has become now. But finding something new, and then or in film also, in film, which inspired the television, but just something new and different, and it did spark, pun intended, you know, a lot of interest and whatever. And
okay, so I looked it up. The Beauty and the Beast TV series came out the year after this film.
Okay.
So George watched the movie and said, "I can work with this."
There's not enough trench coats.
No trench coats. No.
Yep.
Leather jacket, maybe. You know, it was either the leather jacket or the trench coat.
In looking up Beauty and the Beast, I forgot that Ron Perlman was the Beast in that.
I was gonna say when we were talking about oh God, please tell me his name again. The Kurgan guy.
Clancy Brown.
Clancy Brown. Thank you. That Clancy Brown has this like incredibly distinctive face and head shape, and so does Ron Perlman, which is why I kind of made this weird connection between the two of them in my head, I think. But yeah, they both do.
It's like I don't even remember like anything about the show Beauty and the Beast except for Ron Perlman.
Right.
It's like I do remember that I watched it with my parents.
Linda Hamilton.
And Linda Hamilton from the Terminator. Yes. It all comes full circle now.
There we are. Yeah. There you are.
Yay.
We got there. Back to the Terminator.
Stamp. Done.
But I mean, even like a lot of it was you know, you had Blade Runner, you know, original Blade Runner at that time, and how it was just this dark, gritty, futuristic, but you know, it's still a lot of the same noir feel to it that you know that Highlander has, that it shares with, you know, Blade Runner, and it's just that, you know, just that. I guess it became popular again at that time, just the noir genre. So fitting it into, you know, different forms and playing with it, you know, to see how it could, you know, work in different aspects than just traditional. You know, this is like applying a fantasy feel to a noir thriller, you know.
Yeah, it was definitely a novel take on that whole,
you know, instead of the hard-nosed detective, you've got the gritty, you know, investigative forensic novelist, metallurgist.
Yes.
You know, and you got the guy in the trench coat, you know, that's just mysterious and what have you. So, you know, it's got a lot of the same themes.
Yeah, I'll just answer Amy's question. It's without a doubt the training sequence with Ramirez, that whole kind of stretch, because I think it's beautifully filmed. It's obviously beautifully acted with Sean Connery, especially just, and I want to make special notes because of course I have to do this. It's my brand. The musical score during that sequence by Michael Kamen, because he actually does very, you know, a balancing act in this movie, because a lot of his stuff in sort of modern day and even sometimes in the flashbacks is a little rock and roll element to mix in with Queen, but then he's got a, you know, segue into more classical pieces, of which that training sequence, you know, it has, it has a lot of, and I think the music in that sequence is absolutely beautiful. And I'm still kind of mad that a full-fledged soundtrack for his score has never been released. I'd love to have that.
And even choosing Queen as his quote rock element to it, Queen has got that operatic style that just really lends itself to these type of sweeping scenes and dramatic scores and heights of action. They kind of do Freddie Mercury, man, rip.
Ooh, seriously.
Yeah.
He's got that operatic training that he applies to this so well.
Yeah. I wanted to ask if any of you knew, did the Princes of the Universe and the Do You Want to Live Forever, those songs that they did, were they written for this movie? Because they feel like they were.
I don't know, but I would suspect that they were.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an album of theirs that isn't labeled as the Highlander soundtrack, but it is. And,
it is.
And in other countries, in different countries, the cover designs were like images taken from the film. So
gotcha.
It was like an album written for the film, but also put out as their own album. So, but I'm pretty sure at least, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that those films were written for them. Those songs were written for the film, especially Princes of the Universe and Who Wants to Live Forever.
Yeah, Who Wants to Live Forever was written specifically for that love scene.
Yeah.
Brian May was the guy that wrote that specifically after seeing that scene. So it inspired that scene inspired the song.
Inspired the movie.
Yeah, I just looked it up. It says Brian May was inspired to write Who Wants to Live Forever after watching the love scenes between Connor and his wife Heather, the song ultimately accompanied on the film.
Okay, so I will also answer Amy's question.
Yeah,
and we're going to literally reference the same, or something similar. To me, the two best scenes in the film are when Heather is old and dying, and there's a really sort of like tender moment between the two of them. And I'm a sad sack when it comes to film. Like, you can get me to cry pretty easily. Yeah, which is fine, but this movie isn't that kind of movie for the most part. But that scene still had me like getting a little misty in the corners, and I'm just like, okay, I like it. And then I will also say the final sword fight scene, just because of the way they do some of the framing and cinematography there with that, it's very noir to have them backlit, silhouetted, in a wide shot where they have ability to move back and forth. And it also takes some of the clumsiness out of the sword fighting, I think.
Yeah, they give them room to interact.
Yeah. So I was totally gonna take that scene, but the one with Heather, because I'm total softie, and I love those tender moments, that kind of intimacy between the two of them, and how they both knew what was happening. They both knew she was dying, and neither one of them was gonna acknowledge it. And they were just talking about how much they cared for each other, and of course you're gonna be on a hillside and like stuff like that. It was really beautiful, and and touched me. But since you took it, I'm gonna have to say that silly fight, or the silly chase scene with the "Where are you going with my car?" So.
Mom.
And the interactions between Connor and Heather were they're very poignant, very touching. Some of the best probably acting in the movie was between those two.
And when she jumps on his back when they're wearing all the furs and stuff. And and when she's dying, he's like, "Tell me where I am." Because she's slipping away, and she just wants him to just paint a scene for her to kind of ease her passage. That's a tearjerker, man. Seriously.
But I think, just the over the top outlandishness of Ramirez's entrance into the film, it's right up there with, some of the top entrances I've seen, and just his the introduction of his character, I think, is just so. It's just so over the top. That's all I can say about it. It's that scene sticks with you. When I think of it, I'm like, I'm just seeing him standing there in that ridiculous hat, giant peacock feathers, the giant, extravagant peacock cloak. You just know this guy is just like so full of himself,
Right.
I'm wearing a peacock.
Yeah. He came from the court of whoever was the
King Charles V of Spain.
Yeah,
there
you go.
I do have all the lines memorized.
No, that's awesome. Yep.
It makes me think
or at least he said he was.
It makes me think of that meme of Elton John in the car with the
right,
and it's like I'm like literally every immortal in all of Highlander, and then the driver is Connor McLeod, the guy with the comfortable shoes and ugly trench coat.
Yeah.
Everybody else in that movie got style. All the other immortals, at least. Style. We got style of one kind or another. Even, the Kurgan looks awesome in every scene he's in.
Yeah. Remind me of that guy's name again, the one that just pops up halfway through.
You're talking about Sean Connery?
Castidier.
Castidier. Yeah, Castidier. Where on earth is that robe from? Like, I could not place it like in any culture from any time. Like, I'm thinking, is it like a Japanese kind of kimono-y thing, or is it like a I have no clue. Yeah, maybe. I have no idea where that.
Well, who cares where it's from? It's his own style,
Right.
It's his peacock cloak.
Fair enough.
Which, by the way, I do want to say that actor's name is Hugh Corshi, who played Captain Panaka in Star Wars Episode 1. Because I remember when that movie came out, I was sitting there in the theater. I'm like, it's Castidier.
Nice.
But yeah, it's I can't help it. I love the movie. I really do.
It's a good movie to love.
But no, okay, now I know what I was thinking of. It's because you were going on about Ramirez's introduction, Nessie, and that whole line where he delivers his name, and then chief metallurgist to King Charles V of Spain. They got his name and title wrong in Highlander 2 when he introduces himself to somebody. It's like, okay, the movie's a disaster, but you couldn't remember what he freaking said in the first movie.
Oh man, no continuity, editor. So bad.
Because his name is or at least what he's going by, is Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez. And in the sequel, he says that his name is Juan Sanchez Villalopez Ramirez. Chief metallurgist to King Philip II of Spain instead of King Charles V. It's like...
okay.
It's right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It could have been chief metallurgist to two different kings.
Okay, but the name thing,
the name thing is a big oops.
Yeah, oopsie. They should have called you. They should have called you. You would have been able to set him straight. Like, no, here.
Having a bad day.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was only 6 years old at the time of the second movie, but yeah,
that's true.
I could have still steered them. All right, thank you, Aaron.
Did you ever figure out? Yeah,
salty John.
This whole thing about a samurai sword being made,
2,000
years before samurai swords ever actually existed, and they kind of touched on it a little bit, because when he said it was 500 BC, I'm just like, no. I mean, I'm not a history major or anything like that, but I do know, when samurai swords came around, and it was not.
Was that barely the Iron Age at that point? Right. Yeah, there's no way.
Back in Conan the Barbarian, era.
Yeah.
But I think, and that was the point. That was the MacGuffin.
But are we
the sword that's out of place?
Are we meant to believe then that the person that made this, no, because he had a daughter. Like how? Just how? Why?
He was a genius.
But Steve, this is
genius.
This is the 3D chess that the producers of this franchise are playing with. Because in the director's cut of number 2, they changed them being aliens to them being time travelers. And this is where that factors in, Stephen.
Okay.
Time travel is at play.
Oh my God.
Okay. Thanks for clearing that up for me, John.
They went from aliens to time
they
travelers.
Retconned it to aliens and then retconned the retcon to time traveling immortal beings from the distant past, high society.
Which never made sense. Like at all. It's like the alien thing made more sense.
Like a pseudo Atlantis or something that they all came from.
At which point it crosses from fantasy and just flips into science fiction, because aliens.
It certainly did something.
Yeah.
But no, and here's the thing, like, okay, Stephen, I know you said we weren't going to talk about number 2, but it's like,
you know what, we're getting towards the end. Everything's fair game.
Okay, so here's the thing, like, number 2 never made sense because, like, they just threw out the mythology of this first film and said, actually, in our story this time around, the immortals are aliens from the planet Zeist. And that was the whole thing. But there was such backlash naturally from the fans. Never mind that it was just a shit movie, period.
Right.
But
wow.
Yeah. But the fact that they wanted to appease the fans, they put out a director's cut version, which was called the Renegade version, in which they re-edited all the lines to say that they were basically from the very distant past of Earth, which, in distant past Earth, it looked like a completely different alien planet. Sure, that makes sense. And that they were transported into the future, but it still didn't make sense because they never time travel in the first movie. They just are born, they live, and they die. Or get beheaded.
They don't die.
Yeah, or get beheaded. So the re-edit never made sense. So my thought was always just stick with the original version and just own it that you decided to screw with, the mythology and all that. So now, like, even if you wanted to watch it, the only thing you can get is this really weird re-edited version. But I can't stress this enough to people watching this who have never seen any version. Don't watch it, please. I'm begging you. Your life will be so much better if you never have to sit through that piece of trash.
Except for Potter. Potter, if you're listening, you can go ahead and watch it.
Potter does not recognize it as existing, which is the correct
way
to go.
Response, but
I told you.
It's like 3 is a crap movie, but it's a masterpiece next to 2.
Yeah, like 3 is not good, but it's you know what? Sword fighting is probably better in 3 than it is in 1.
It is, but 3 is basically a remake of 1 anyway.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
Kind of like Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
But it's there were improvements in the sword fighting, but the story itself lacks any of the charm that is to be found in the first one. So that's what I'm saying. Number 3 isn't a good movie, but it's
charm. You say what charm are we? Which charm are we talking about? Are we talking about the misogyny or the homophobia or the?
Not those parts.
Yeah, I had those written down too.
Yeah, there's some 80s cringe in there. I mean,
there is some 80s cringe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, to be fair, is never stuff that's like all the stuff like in sort of at the time modern day New York never worked for me even when I was a kid. That those were always my least favorite parts of the movie. What always made the movie work was the romanticism of the flashback scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to sit here and defend the 80s stuff because
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And we have a pretty well established history here of like not holding that against it, but also not letting it just slide.
Yeah.
And we haven't mentioned it yet, but there was definitely at least one scene with some pretty distinct homophobia.
Yep.
At least two scenes where
and
there
a
was some,
lot of it always involved when they were at like the police station, you know, the interactions of the police and with
the police were really bad in this movie.
They were, you know, all of the.
I remember, especially, you know, the one. I think we all know who I'm talking about.
Oh yeah,
that was. But I always really hated that one. The one cop, the younger one. Like even when I was a kid, I was like, I want to like really hurt that man.
Yeah, I want to punch your face in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were a couple of moments of some casual misogyny and there
some Orientalism.
What was it? Religious bigotry. You know, you're in league with the devil. So we're gonna drag.
Well, yeah, but that.
I mean, it is weird, honestly, to be stabbed in the side and come and not die.
No. I actually thought that completely fit because that's what they would think, and in those ways.
Superstition of the time.
That's probably what I would have thought at the time.
Those homophobic comments are exactly what people in the 80s would have thought. So I think the argument still.
Yeah.
I think it's fair argument.
I mean, if you're looking at all the behavior through the modern lens, then.
Yeah, but. I don't know. I would argue that the homophobia and stuff that was insulting to people
without plot relevance.
Without any plot relevance, the stuff in the past, it's like because people were very superstitious.
Yes, they were. People were superstitious about gay people in the 80s.
I think it's a different category, Stephen.
I don't, but like I'm not going to fight you about it either.
Well, I mean, looking at through the modern lens, you know, you see people being closed-minded about many different things. And in the distant, you know, in the past, when, you know, the flashback scenes, there was, a lot of religious superstition, intolerance. I mean, literally, they were burning people for not fitting in.
Right.
You know, they're not fitting into the rest of society. They don't harp on it. It's not like, oh, this is the big thing that they're harping on, but, you know, it's a sprinkle here. In the past, they were closed-minded about this. And then, you know, in the future scenes, they've got, you know, their intolerance to, you know.
But even in like modern days, like in our present day storytelling, if you got a show like Outlander that's set in the past, you're still going to deal with that concept of, okay, here's this woman who's a time traveler. And if she, you know, says that to certain people, they're going to accuse her of being a witch or something. That's just something that you would expect of the time. We don't find Outlander problematic because they're depicting that. Whereas if they hammered home, like if they were like sort of casually homophobic within the script, they weren't showing it because it was a, you know, depiction of 80s homophobia. They wrote it there because at the time they wrote it, the writers were being casually homophobic.
Okay, I get where your distinction is coming from, but I disagree. Our two opinions cannot coexist in the same space. So I challenge you to a duel, which will end when one of us cuts the other's head off.
Okay.
Very well
we
done.
knew it was coming to that.
At Con of Thrones, Orlando.
If you both cut each other's head off, do I get the quickening?
Yes, you do.
There can be only one.
Yes. Yes. That's fantastic.
All right, y'all. Well, we've got about 15 minutes left, so I'm going to just say to the chat, y'all, if you've got questions or comments or something you want us to discuss in the last bit of the video here, bring it up now or forever hold your peace. Christine, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I don't know. I told you, if I don't write it down, it's gone.
I got you.
So
that's fine.
Well, since we do have 15 minutes left, I just want to say that the film was never sort of my favorite part of what Highlander is. I would say that if you've seen the film and you like the film, you check out the series. It doesn't start off that great. It's very much, even though it was made in the early 90s, it's very much 80s-ish, is sort of going along with the film. But I think the show matured and developed some really great characters. Obviously Duncan MacLeod, Richie, Mythos, the world's oldest immortal, Dawson, representing the Watchers, and Amanda, who is like one of my favorite characters of all time. She's wonderfully mischievous.
She played the thief, right? The immortal thief.
Yeah, and
I like her already.
So many wonderful characters throughout the show, and I do want to throw a shout out to the actor who played Richie, Stan Kirsch, who passed away. I think it might have been a year ago. This time as a concept, I can't tell with the pandemic, but it was not too long ago that he passed away, and that was really sad for me, having grown up watching him as Richie. But yeah, I love that show, and I'm actually looking forward, hopefully, to talking about it at some point, maybe over on Cinematic Realms. That would be fun.
Yeah, that's kind of outside the scope of what I like. I'm not going to go binge an entire sort of like niche series. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
We're still trying to get through Clone Wars, man.
Yeah. Oh God, Clone Wars. Don't remind me.
Well, we have to, otherwise.
It's my job.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad you said something. I should get on that. Joe wants to talk about how Clancy Brown is one of the best villain actors of all time. Now, Joe, I think we probably talked about Clancy Brown a good bit before you popped into the stream. He got a good bit of love, but I'm not above turning it back and saying, he really is fantastic. He might be. It's either him or Ramirez is my favorite character in this movie.
Right.
I really liked him in Shawshank.
Mm-hmm.
As the guard, as the corrections officer.
Right.
Who kind of like befriends Andy, towards the middle, whatever.
Befriend is a strong word.
Okay, stops like beating on him every chance he gets because he finds him useful. Friend, useful person to exploit. Any way you look at it, but yeah.
Clancy Brown did an amazing job, just manufacturing a character that was so over the top and so. He was a total psychopath. Would have been like an edgelord supreme, he was a big villain.
He was great because he was. Yes, he's a psychopath, and actually those villains tend to be not as great for me. But he was having so much fun doing it that I'm just like, okay, I'm back on board.
Literal glee.
Happy Halloween, ladies.
I think they asked him to come back to do the second film, and he just I think he read a little bit of the script and told them they were out of their minds. And
just milk it right on out of there.
He's just like, nope.
Yep.
Blue Lemon Tree has
such a bad movie. Sorry.
Blue Lemon Tree has a great question. With a reboot supposedly in the works, do you guys think it's a good franchise to reboot in the 2020s? And what would you like to see this time around?
I do have to say, there's been talk of a reboot for so long that I'm kind of like, I'll believe it when I see it. But it's sort of like you were saying earlier, Stephen, it's a great concept. And I actually think I'd like the chance to see something done with it if you get some really quality writers and a quality director behind it, because I don't think it's ever it hasn't gotten like the series did very well for, they did have some talented writers on there, but not like, I'm talking like if you actually got some like sort of A-list talent to take a stab at a script, I think it could actually be quite successful. But at the same time, I'm like, but this is what this movie was kind of railing against. It was an original concept. And like,
right. I think it could be done quite well. I really do, especially since the way that camera lighting technologies have advanced. I think they could do a lot. You know who I want to have on the show as a regular? Miltos Urolamu.
Oh,
because that man is a master swordsman.
Yep.
And he has got charisma dripping out of every pore in his body.
Yeah, he really does. Has it coming out of his pockets.
Cast him as Ramirez. Oh my God, please.
Oh, that
Peadar,
would be lovely.
Jared Harris should be in everything. So yeah, I'd love to see him.
And that's something that if they did a reboot, I would like to see more. Interactions between the immortals. Maybe not just at the final it's this big winner take all everything. Maybe kind of lead into it.
I will say one thing they need to do, like whether they reboot it as a series or a movie or whatever, they need to drop the gathering. All that does is pigeonhole the plot. Yeah.
Yeah, not only that, but like it forces an end to it.
Yeah,
where
that's what I was saying.
Yeah, you couldn't take the show and the characters on the arcs that you wanted to take them on because it has this artificial end point.
Yeah,
yeah.
Which is where all the problematic things and other
rebooting it.
And that's why you always got the punchline at the expense of the sequels. Regardless of their quality or lack thereof, the joke was always there can be only one, but they kept making more.
We wanted more. That's the problem.
I would look forward, if they did a reboot, I would look forward to fewer weaves and more actors that actually had long hair. That would be nice, because the weaves were pretty bad in both of them.
I think they could probably find,
there you go. You got the long locks.
Just teach me how to sword fight real quick.
Yeah.
I mean, you got all the extras from Game of Thrones you can throw in there. All of all the wildling extras. They'll make great clansmen and
Tormund Giantsbane would be a fantastic clansman.
Oh, you'd be a great immortal. Can you just picture him as an immortal being? Oh my God.
I have to say, now that I'm thinking about it, with all of the ridiculous amounts of reboots and remakes and stuff that we've seen, I'm actually now kind of shocked that this hasn't happened yet.
I bet it will. It
had so much potential.
Even if it doesn't have a huge fan base, it does have a dedicated fan base, and it still has name recognition, which in Hollywood is worth a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when you say the Highlander, people only think of one thing, this universe. Maybe they don't think of all the same movies and television shows and books and comic books or whatever there's been, but that's the same as like you see Star Wars. It's the same thing. Not everybody thinks of the same movies and books and all of that extra stuff, but they still are thinking of the same universe.
And I have to say, I'm actually constantly surprised at like how many people actually do know of this universe, because when I was a kid watching this, oh
man.
But it always seemed like I was kind of off of my own world and enjoying this, and then it would get name dropped and different things. Like I'll always remember sitting in the theater watching Talladega Nights, and Will Ferrell goes, "Wow, I feel like I'm in Highlander." He's like, "What's the Highlander?" It's a movie. Very good movie. It won the Academy Award. Oh, for what? For best movie ever made.
Oh Oh,
Yeah.
man.
But
I
yeah,
mean-
I could see a reboot of the genre really having a popular, at least a respectable, showing. I think I think there'd be enough interest.
So let me ask you this: as someone who did watch the show, are any immortals women?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Few, but
A few.
Not, yeah.
The Amanda that John was just talking about. Yeah. That was one notable.
Yeah, and she had a mentor who was also a woman, and there were guest stars throughout the show who were also women immortals. So yeah, no, and especially when they were trying to, I mean, the less we talk about season 6, the better, because they were on the show was on its way out at that point. But for much of that season, they were like sort of testing potential pilots for a successor series. And so actually you had a number of like female guest stars who were kind of like the main characters of their episodes.
Yeah. Amanda was supposed to get her own series too,
and she actually did for, I think it lasted a season. Yeah.
I think the biggest problem is we'll always know it as the Highlander universe or the Highlander series or whatever, but part of that does pigeonhole it into being about Scottish people, and this really should, because the Highlander is Connor.
Right.
It's, you're saying that as I would say that's probably more people, at least people who have seen the show, probably first think of Duncan MacLeod as the Highlander.
Okay, but
he's still attached.
Right, he's still the Scottish guy.
But this is why I think it would I'd like to see a reboot as a television series, because you have the chance for an ensemble cast rather than just focusing on one character.
Right.
Because they do, at least in the film, they show us, ostensibly Egyptian, but I looked it up. What's his name? Castigear is Ethiopian.
Yeah,
they name dropped somebody killed in the film who I believe is Korean, which is probably the guy that the Kurgan killed in
New Jersey.
So we love that. I love the diverse cast, and it could be really interesting. And sword fighting is good. It's fun and cool to watch when it's done well.
Yeah, it'd be cool to watch in all these different styles too, from all over the world.
All over the world, yeah.
Well, and the thing was, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and then too, they can fill in a lot of the backstory with the Kurgan's backstory, as well as if they're going to keep it just to the MacLeod.
Who do we get to play the Kurgan?
See, I don't want them to do that. I don't like.
They don't have to give it to like an end point. I
don't want them to do the Kurgan. I want them to take the idea of Highlander and and do something different.
He's got a great story. I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
Look, I'm the head of the production company, and this is happening. You have to help me make a casting decision.
Oh, goodness gracious.
I'm going to go with Rory McCann.
Rory McCann.
He's the Hound.
Yeah. It's not a bad choice for sure. Yeah, I don't have a good answer for that. I'm sorry.
That's fine. I'm literally just killing time until.
But yeah, if you take the gathering,
to the end, to be honest with you,
if you take the gathering out of it, you can have these interactions with all of these people during different different times in history, and how their interactions, how they met one another, how they, what kind of mischief they got into, hanging out with, Connor and Castigan, hanging out in, I don't know, Istanbul, during the Crusades. That would be fun, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, they actually had a variety of different weapons in the TV series. I mean, obviously there were many kinds of different swords, but I do believe that some more axe-like weapons were used.
Like the first guy that died.
One character had like a scimitar or something.
I want a giant pair of scissors.
Would you run with
guillotine?
I would run with them. I'm dangerous like that.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, in season 5, one of the 4 horsemen, I think, actually did use an axe. I think Silas. So yeah, there were many different weapons used. But getting back to, like, it would be better if it was a TV show, because Highlander the series was not, at least when it started off, it was very much about Dr. McLeod. But as the series went on, it was about, all the different cast members. You had certain episodes where you would flash back, and find about Mythos's story. That's what the four horsemen 2-parter was all about. It was about delving into his history. There were episodes where you found out about Amanda's past, and it was her story. That's
I would
inspired.
Awesome.
I would dig it. I was thinking it, but I wasn't going to say it.
So with a series, the name Highlander would be more of like,
so
it would represent the main character, but it also becomes this sort of more abstract title where it's not just about that character.
I think it would need to be like an ensemble show, because that is what the modern nerdy audience, that's what we gravitate towards.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of seeing a series about this concept that would be sort of laser focused with the way that shows are made today, where you don't have the filler episodes. You've got, like, if it's like a 10 episode season and it's very, strategically, structured to tell a specific story, I would really love to see that. As a longtime fan, I'd like to see something that was firing on all cylinders for this story.
I agree.
Yep.
So, any other final thoughts?
Just thanks for doing this one, Stephen, because I never ever thought I'd get to talk about Highlander on one of these streams. So, well,
here we are, buddy. And again, there was a vote. This lost by 1 vote, so I was just like, let's just do them both.
Yeah.
Here's to the Twitter poll.
Woo!
Okay. Well, if that's all, I don't have anything else to say.
No.
But if that is it, we'll just we'll wrap up here. And I will say, I know, Nessie, you've got stuff coming up, but you don't have anything scheduled just yet.
Yeah.
And won't until April.
Taking a little break.
John, you're also on a break, although March 31st birthday stream, Wednesday evening.
I know I told you all that we were done with the live streams, but turns out we got another one in us. So March 31st, come celebrate my birthday with me and Amy.
Yay.
Right. And Christine, I know you just finished up book 1 for your podcast over there at the Nevernever Podcast, and about to start book 2, I guess.
Well, book 2 will come after the bonus episode. Yeah, we're releasing hopefully this week the mythology of Mab.
I really can't wait for that. I love it.
It's gonna
be
cool.
right up my alley, man.
It's gonna be cool.
Right on. Well, Christine, it was a genuine joy having you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
And then come back next week for Safe, social anxiety, fandom experience. Engagement.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone who is here live, thank you so much for engaging with us and making the stream that much more fun. And if you're watching this after, thank you also, but just not quite as much. I always show favoritism to the people who are here live. But yeah, it was a lovely time. I had fun talking about this movie, even if it wasn't the best movie we've covered in this series. It was still a good time. But yeah, everyone, we'll see you next week. And you know what it is. Until next time, peace.
Peace.
And be excellent to each other.